webinar on the impact of COVID-19 sectors of real estate. Today, we focus on developing sustainable real estate. And I'll be co-hosting this webinar with my colleague, Tim HALLETT. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Raymond.
As a result of the pandemic, health and sanitation have come to the forefront of our lives. There has been increased interest in healthy living, driving a shift in lifestyle, and consequently, a shift in workspace requirements. Healthy buildings are being noticed anew, and environmentally friendly and sustainable materials are flooding the market. It's ironic that it had to take a pandemic to bring to the attention of consumers these sustainable endeavors that have been in the midst of more than. Before we go on, we'd like to let our audience know that there will be an opportunity to respond to a few questions at the end of this webinar. Please post your questions by clicking on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Today, we have two distinguished guests who will share with us insights and considerations from the architecture and interior design point of views. Our first guest, Miaja. Tim?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. So, thank you, Raymond. Yes, we're honored today. Our first guest is ISABELLE Miaja, who's joining us from Singapore. ISABELLE is the Managing Director and Creative Director of the Miaja Design Group, one of the leading hospitality, interior design, and architecture companies in Asia. ISABELLE's got a rich history. I mean, she comes from a very creative family background, growing up in Paris, being heavily involved in art and design, which obviously led her into her career. She moved to California, I guess, as part of the boho area, and started in her interior design career, which I'm sure is very similar with many people. And after a number of successful years where she was involved in the hotel business, interiors, and providing design services in some luxury residential projects in New York and Beverly Hills, she decided to relocate, as we all did, into Asia back about 25 years ago, and start a new life and a new career, where they established the ISABELLE Miaja Design Associates Group, which really was created to focus on boutique hotels and high-end residential development projects. The company has now grown, and in 2009 became the Miaja Design Group, as I said, with offices in London, in Singapore, has facilities in Manila, and has certainly been working on some very creative and innovative projects in the region with clients such as Club Med, both resort and ski destinations, Marriott, Maldivian properties, and working with a number of properties, to name but a few, with many of the world's hotel groups, including Accor and Hilton and such like. So, too many to mention, but good morning, ISABELLE. Welcome to today, and we look forward to an interesting discussion a little bit later in this webinar.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, everyone, for being part of this webinar with us.
Raymond.
Good morning, ISABELLE. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, Raymond.
Our next speaker, good morning, is a multi-awarded Italian architect with recognitions for green architecture and industrial design from Estonia, Italy, and the Philippines. Graduated summa cum laude at the Sapienza University of Rome, and finished his executive master's in business administration at the Asian Institute of Management. Currently the chairman and CEO of Italpinas Development Corporation, local developer with sustainable residential and commercial projects located in Cagayan de Oro. I want to welcome for everyone architect ROMOLO NATI. Good morning, ROMOLO.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me.
Happy to have you here, ROMOLO.
Thank you.
ROMOLO, let's start with you. IDC's projects are located in emerging cities in the provinces, known in Cagayan de Oro, where you started your projects, and of course the upcoming project in Batangas City. With this Balik Provincia program of the government, from your experience, is it viable for developers and be more into sustainable buildings in the provinces?
Yes, actually, these are two questions in one. One is the viability of green buildings and how the market is, how do you say, changing is the perception of green buildings after the pandemic. And the second one is if these buildings are profitable and so sellable and in emerging locations in the Philippines. Starting from the first one, why green buildings are more relevant now? Mainly because a well-designed and built green buildings allow to have better natural ventilation inside the units, and we all know that aircon looks like to have contributed to the diffusion of the virus. So reducing the use of aircon will definitely help to have a healthier inner environment. On top of that, also being in locations that are not so congested will also help to protect from virus and bacteria in general. This is also not strictly related to the COVID. And in the provinces, or as we like to call these new wave cities in the Philippines, and not only, we can find opportunities to build in environments that are less polluted than mega city like Metro Manila. And during the pandemic, the scientists also found a relation between pollution and the spread of COVID. Actually, in Italy, where I come from, even if I am based in the Philippines, I live here. I'm sure you have heard that a few cities, a few regions have been hit particularly by the COVID, which were Lombardia and Piemonte, where Milan is, and these areas are the most polluted areas in the country. So while they are trying to understand why these cities and locations have been badly affected, it looks like that this link between the spread of the virus and the not good quality of air have relations. So having said that, I think that the Philippines already started years ago to understand the importance of developing different cities and not only concentrated in Metro Manila. What we have taught since the inception of the company in 2009 was exactly to provide world-class real estate products in emerging locations. We decided to start in Mindanao, in Cagayan de Oro City, which is located north side of Mindanao. It's also considered the hub of Mindanao, or also the hub to the Visayas and Luzon from Mindanao. And the city itself is one of the fastest growing cities in the Philippines. I think it's ranked number 4. As Cagayan, there are other locations that are very interesting in the Philippines. So the Philippines more and more is becoming a multipolar country. And also with what happened with the lockdown, I think it was very clear that if a country big as the Philippines, with the more than 100 million people, rely only on one big city, if something happened to that big cities, what about the rest? So it's always better, like in investment, to differentiate your investment. So I think that the program, the Balik Provincia, is also heading the achievement of this goal, make the Philippines a multipolar country, not a unipolar country. So it's very, very much welcome. And in some way, we can proudly say that in Italpinas, we anticipated this trend back in 2009, and which now is mainstream.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you share us some of your projects, Romulo? I think you
Absolutely.
I would love to
share
see
the
the
screen now.
product and the designs.
Yeah. And you let me know if you have any problem in seeing my screen.
Very good.
Okay. Okay. So as I said, Italpinas, which was established in 2009, is a real estate development company focused on developing green buildings in emerging cities in the Philippines. We are member both of the Philippine Green Building Councils and the US Green Building Council, and all our buildings are certified green by EDGE. EDGE is a green rating system developed by the IFC, which is part of the World Bank Group. In our short history, we have been able to secure several awards and recognitions. And together with my partner, Giorgio Leviste, we also have been featured in National Geographic Asia back in 2014. This myself, I am an architect graduated in Italy. I have also been designing cars during my early career. And my partner, Giorgio Leviste, is Filipino. He studied both in the Philippines and in Australia. In short, the value propositions of Italpinas are mainly three. We deliver only passive green design buildings so that buildings will not cost too much. So they are really targeted for the rising middle class in the country. And we are only interested in, so far, in emerging cities in the country. How the passive green strategy works, just to give an idea with this simple slide, we gather data from the place where the building is going to be developed, data such as wind speed, wind direction, sun path, temperature, and so on. We integrate this software using data using parametric softwares, which help us to come up with a 3D model which represents the best solution given those data and according to our goal. Mainly the Philippines, the goal is to reduce the use of aircon. Just to, if you think that in the Philippines, in general in Southeast Asia, around 60% of power is used for aircon. So if we are able to reduce the use of aircon, we drastically reduce the consumption of power. This is just a slide that shows the data gathering we did when we were studying the condition in Cagayan de Oro. So we have access to satellite data, and so we can gather this data and work with them. This is a short video that shows some of the softwares that we use. The first one is for the project in Santo Tomas, Batangas. With this software, we are able to optimize the location of the building so that we can increase natural light and decrease shadow. We also have we also do study in relation to the wind, because we want to increase natural ventilation inside the buildings when the wind has a normal speed, but also reduce damages in case of typhoon. And in this part of the world, we have typhoons. The last video shows how we are able to increase the natural light, but thanks to shading, ledges, and cantilever structure, we are able to reduce the increase of temperature inside the buildings, which again help us to reduce the use of aircon. Why are we interested in emerging cities? These are some slides that show how the internal migration in the country was in the last 50, 60, 70 years. If you consider that in 1950s, only 18 million people were living in Metro Manila, and seeing that in 2019, almost 110 million people are living in the Philippines, you can imagine how many people move from the provinces back to Metro Manila. So in 1950s, only 1.5 million people were living in Metro Manila, but now there are more than 14 million people living in Metro Manila. This was due the lack of opportunities in the provinces and also the high cost of traveling in domestic travel. So people from the provinces headed Metro Manila look for opportunities, but creating all these negative effects, such as environmental degradation, traffic, also a social problem, which is family separation, and a very high cost of living. What we anticipated back in 2009 was what we call centrifugal migration. People from the from Manila or Cebu, or also OFWs, would like to back to the Philippines, but to their own provinces. Why? Because, as we said earlier, in the province you can find a better environment, less traffic, and now also more job opportunities, and above all, with a social benefit that is the reunion of families. So this trend, which was really not mainstream 10 years ago, is now becoming an established trend, and it will increase according to ourselves. The population in the Philippines, we talk already, we are talking about around 110 million people, and we have a lot of the middle class is growing, and it will represent 70% of the entire population in 2030. Philippines is also very interesting in terms of housing opportunities to develop, because there is a gap of almost 6 million units, and these units are mainly affordable housing demands. So, and obviously, this affordable housing demands is not located in Makati or in Fort Bonifacio, in the business district. These are mainly needed in what we call the provinces. Just to give you an idea about our projects, we already developed one project fully developed, which is Primavera Residences in Cagayan, another one under development still in Cagayan de Oro, and another one under development in Santo Tomas, Batangas. We can go to see more in detail. All our projects, by the way, have been awarded as the best mixed-use development in the Philippines by the International Property Award. Primavera was in 2014. As I said, we are located in Cagayan de Oro, which is in northern Mindanao. Mindanao is a very rich island in terms of agriculture and mining, and around Cagayan there are a lot of multinational companies. We are also located in a higher location, 110 meters above the sea levels, because in Cagayan there are flood problems. This is the project, real photos. As you can notice, we are just close to an SM mall, and these are some of the passive green strategies. What we mainly do is we increase natural ventilation, we create shading in the facade, and we also produce power using solar photovoltaic panels on the rooftop. This is real photos. These are some photos of the project, which is sold out already. It was developed years ago.
Why start in Cagayan de Oro, Romulo? I mean, is there any specific reason with regards to the market in Cagayan de Oro that made you choose to start your first project there?
You know, we felt that the city was underserved in terms of condominiums, in terms of real estate product that can match the quality you can find in I don't know, in the US, even in Makati or in Canada or in Europe in general, and also the presence of multinational companies and the fact that Cagayan represent the hub of northern Mindanao. So most of the agricultural products in the Philippines come from Mindanao. They use the port of Cagayan. So it was, I would say, quite clear that Cagayan was an underserved cities fast growing without having some of the facilities, some of the buildings that a growing cities deserve. And we were right. Apart from that, also Cagayan is considered a university town. A lot of universities are in Cagayan, and despite the stereotype of Mindanao being a dangerous place, Cagayan is not dangerous at all. It's a safe place. Actually, Mindanao, only some places are considered dangerous. The rest is quite safe. So in some way, we also overcame this stereotype of developing in a city that in the stereotype ones that is a dangerous one, which is not. On top of that, it's also number of people and the demographic in Cagayan. We are talking now about 1.3 million people, so it's not a small city. These mainly were the reasons. So lack of competition, if you want, in some way. That's why also we extended our project, we expanded, and in the same location, we're now developing a much bigger project that is going to be done in phases, 4 phases, and we already are completing phase 1, which is Città Verde. And all these buildings are mixed-use building and green building. So they will save energy, they will also produce energy. I'll try to show a video. I hope you can see it.
Yep. Very nice.
Thank you. These are some of the slides that you just saw in the video. And this is phase 1, almost completed. We should turn over the project starting next quarter. And this is phase 2, also under construction. The last project I present is Miramonti, which is located in Santo Tomas, Batangas. Also, this project was awarded. The area is quite interesting because Batangas is plenty of industrial park, PESA zone. There are more than 100,000 employees in the area, and the hotel occupancy is very high. The place is also located exactly in the middle between Manila and Batangas Port. Batangas Port is gaining volume in terms of business. Actually, I think it's already bigger than Manila's port in terms of goods transfer. We are inside a well-developed small township, mainly with the presence of industrial parks. This is the project. We are now developing phase 1, and phase 2 is we are now finalizing the design. We are very well connected with the, as I said, Manila and Batangas through first-class highway. I show you also a video for this project that better show the features. These are some slides, some view renderings. The building is under construction, and we were here before the stop of the construction, which is resuming as we speak. This is an overview about buyer's profile. So we have, in general, for the project that we are developing in the emerging cities in the Philippines, we have around 30 to 40% local businessmen. So we're talking about people that have disposable income to invest, and they like to invest in their own cities. We also have a big component OFWs, and the rest is employees, and foreigners are growing. As I said, just to give you an information, like I remember when we started, we have maybe less than 1%, 2% foreigners, but now we have, we are increasing the number of foreigners that are buying. Thank you very much, and I'm free to answer any question.
Thank you, Romulo.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Romulo. Thank you, Raymond. Okay, let's move on to the sort of, the green design in the hospitality industry. I mean, Isabelle, the hospitality industry itself has always been, quite advanced in terms of its green design initiatives, both in terms of design and build and in terms of operation, even pre-COVID. Of course, the post-COVID era is going to change that. What do you believe are some of the key drivers in the hospitality industry through green design? And, how do you see it as one of the Asia's leading interior designers and architects in this space?
I think nowadays designing is a matter of a world quest. I mean, I don't think that we're talking about something specific to any country. I think we need to look at the global impact of everything that we are constructing and everything that we are developing. I was going to read just to start, what the United Nations what they say is that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And I think that this is what we have to look forward, is trying to, as much as possible, to repair what we have not done well, and move forward with a lot of principles of construction and development that will help the future generations not to have to repair what we have done.
That's good, and I'm sure there's many initiatives. And perhaps Isabelle, you can take us through your presentation, and we can learn about some of the initiatives and some of the projects you're involved in, where you've been able to apply some of these principles.
So just to say a little bit about myself, as you mentioned, team, I've been working in Asia for now 25 years. Share screen. Okay, so I think that you can see. I've been in Asia for 25 years. I think Asia was where we started really working on the concept of sustainability. I was part of a group called the Turning Point, with a few people in the spa industry, when the spa industry was becoming quite a strong motivator for developing a better way of usage of water, of usage of all the elements that make a spa such a great place to be, but also depleting a lot of energies through all the elements of, that of the treatments and the water being consumed. So that was the beginning, about like maybe 15 years ago. I went on as a designer to work on a lot of resorts. And first I started as doing interior design, so working with architects and learning the ropes of developing resorts. And that was really a big learning curve for me, because instead of like looking at it, receiving plans from an architect, I started also getting the understanding of what it meant to work with the different aspects of the architecture, and how to best use architecture to not only live better, but also use the minimum energy by using all the natural energy, such as the air, and also exposing the house in the right way. It was always funny to me, because my mom long time ago used to tell me, if you're going to buy a house, make sure that the kitchen is actually gets the morning sun. And actually it was the way you live in the house, and the way she was mentioning something like this from my great grandfather, which was a builder. And it kind of like made sense afterwards, when I started like working with architects and doing our own project of architecture. Working as an interior designer and integrating also architecture, I'm not going to go through the different phases. We can discuss this, how we implement the different aspects of sustainability in each aspect of the design later on. But just to go a little bit through some of the projects to better illustrate, I think. So this is the Maldives, and as you know, in the Maldives we get a virgin island. If it's not a redevelopment of an island, which you will see after, but this one was a new island. We also extended the superficie of the island, which is not like, dredging is, always like quite a painful process for the local environment. You don't have to do this in the Philippines, but to extend the superficie of an island for a developer to put the ideal number of houses, even though you're going also onto the sea because of the lagoons being very shallow. There's a lot of like preparation of the seabed as well that needs to be done. So we went from, for example, from obviously like studying all the corals that are around, finding the place where to do this extension, but also taking in where the wind comes, they can be quite strong in the Maldives. Also, in the past, they used to create like stone walls to protect a little bit, but now it's not allowed anymore to create those stone walls. They used to also use corals for the walls, and now it's not allowed anymore. So we've seen a lot of like different changes in how to develop the Maldives. I'm actually like showing you interiors because here, in the Maldives, exterior and interiors are pretty much very well connected, but we still have to take in consideration that the monsoon season does come. There is a low season there, and it's very stormy, like in the Philippines, but we don't get like, all the typhoons, but still, it can be quite devastating. Remember that a while back, we also got the tsunami hitting the Maldives. So we also had to take all that in consideration. And when we construct with the whole flow and also the weather in mind. So everything obviously has to do with the materials that you're using. It's very difficult to talk about sustainability in terms of the carbon footprint because in the Philippines everything has to be imported, and sustainability being about the country, its people, and also its environment. We try as much as possible to stay within those guidelines, but obviously the Maldives does not produce anything, has no materials to be actually being able to be used. The only thing that we can help with sustainability is using creating more jobs for the Maldivians, and that is something that the government puts a lot of effort into that, giving jobs to the Maldivians and also enhancing through sending them to have school, especially in the hotel industry, to train them and giving them a future as well. So we also use some islands next to the development to create also some local manufacturing, which can be sold at the hotel. So we're looking also at a much more bio development, using what is there and being able to apply it to the development of the resort. So everything is imported. We try not to import from too many places, but obviously the cost of development is quite expensive in the Maldives. Everything has to be brought over, and a lot of the clients are looking towards China and bringing in the containers. It's always like a big, I won't say a fight, because you have to deal with the fact that there is economics in place, and you have to look at that as well together with the client. You're not there to come in and dictate. You're there to help the process and make it as best as possible. So this is like one of the architectural projects where we took also all the possibilities of surfaces. We didn't use the pai, which a lot of the hotels you know, now it's becoming quite expensive, or they're using also the fake one, which is in a way more sustainable because you don't have to redo the pipe every 7 years in general. But we try to work very much with also giving a lot of natural wind and a lot of ways of like opening all the windows and doors, so we use the least possible air conditioning. We've also tried to work with solar panels. Still, like, you know, working with a lot of like people to discuss the solar panel systems is great for some moments, but others you have to have the generators, especially on the island, since we are creating our own system within the island, recycling the grey waters. Also planting, you know, our own fruits and vegetables. So there's a lot of techniques in on the island to try to be self-sufficient as well. Obviously, the Maldives is something of a dream to everyone, but it's also a lot of maintenance. So try to use materials that are like the least maintenance need possible, because all that ends up being thrown away, especially metal. I would recommend not using any metal. I mean, this, like you would know, also in the Philippines, metal starts rusting right away, and then the whole place looks very tired very fast. I don't use marbles anymore as well, because it gets a lot of fungus. So it's not just the fungus; it's the fact that you have to use products to clean everything, and so everything is like looking at the macro, and then after that going down to the micro. And bathrooms also are very important. This is, you know, looking into the piping. Obviously, everything goes underneath, and then if it's on the water villa, it's even more an issue. So everything has to be well planned and using the least possible piping, and yet try to keep that sense of like 5-star, which everybody is looking at at the experience to going to the Maldives. So a little bit of I mentioned a little bit also that we try to be sustainable in the food. A lot of the now Maldivian resorts are developing their own area where they build, you know, their own farming. It great, you know, for the concept of like from farm to table, from the and people enjoy going and getting their vegetables and going to the whole area where they see the gardeners working. So that's also you know, the trying also to create restaurants that are like not about so many food displays. I know that you know, everyone loves to see like a beautiful humongous buffet, but nowadays the 5-star hotel also are reducing that aspect, so there's least wastage. The chefs are looking at how something can actually become a different dish. We do a lot of recycling of food as well, sharing also with the people working on the island, so it's not like their food and the guest food, but making sure that we don't throw anything. Obviously, we're using a lot of water for the pools, for the individual pools, for the spa, so all that aspect also is being looked at. And what I had learned during all these spa conventions is how you are very careful with the piping that you use, and how you also look at the recycling of the water. So this is something that we are very conscious about in the Maldives. Another project, this one is we actually designed this project about 10 years ago, and afterwards the clients came back to us to do a complete renovation. We tried to do as much as possible, keeping the bones of the architecture, which we had designed at the time, so not to destroy everything, especially the concrete, because it's very hard to actually recycle concrete. But we managed to redesign a project that was from a Viceroy to a Marriott, in JW Marriott, into a very luxurious concept again, without touching too much of the whole the past work that we had already done. This one is a new build for the Pullman. Again, using this lake was actually there, so we rehabilitated the lake and introduced fishes, and now an irrigation system, and looking into also making sure that we don't have too much of the algae, but creating like a very diverse environment within the island. So as I mentioned, so this one is the spa. What I love about the Maldives is how much we've been pushing the envelopes. I've been working there for 15 years, and now there's a real aspect of sustainability being very present for the government of the Maldives. They have a lot of regulation that they want us to follow, and a lot of the building construction now is looked at in a very very keen way onto making sure that we are sustainable, that we are careful with how we use products, and how we actually take care of also our environment. They come and they look at also the trees and the moving of the trees, and it's definitely like, you know, how to take care of what is given to us to build on. This one, I think it's my last project I'm showing you, is the Club Med as a ski resort. This one was a redevelopment. And what I love about Japan is that they have amazing workmanship. The workers there, we didn't have to import anyone. We didn't have to import anything. We used everything that is present in Japan to redesign this resort, and it was we had to redo all the electrical and all the plumbing and all the back of the house. So that's one of the things when we do new, we try to implement a lot of aspects in terms of the building new for the back of the house. We often look at what is beautiful, but in the back, if you're not careful with all the appliances that you're using, and ROMOLO was mentioning that also in his presentation, you know, there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. I think, Tim, we talked together earlier about, you know, a lot of times the FF&E and everything is ending up being the thing that people scringe on financially because they're running out of money. But I've seen so many projects where the client ended up spending, you know, for lower quality, and then 2, even like 1 year later, spending money again to replace. So there's a lot of wastage. A project needs to be well thought through to be able to have enough finances to put the right amount of good quality appliances and for the back of the house with the generators, everything to be of high quality. So like that, you know, the project withstands time, and I'm proud to say that most of the projects we've worked on, there was no renovation needed to be done in a major way. You know, only after 5 to 6 years, 7 years, only because wear and tear, but not falling apart. So using local manufacturing is quite important as well, and also keeping it, you know, within the flavor of the country and the city. I think that this Sofitel, so I'm sure a lot of people have seen its development. This one was a total renovation of an old building. You can imagine that it was a communication building in the 1900s. Then it became offices, and to redo this one as an hotel, definitely one of our biggest challenge. The size of the rooms and the everything that was behind the walls needed to be redone. So that was not that was a work together with the architect to work as much as possible with what was there, but to to put together, you know, an infrastructure that actually would last also and would be more efficient. So it has gotten the Green Globe certification. Very, this one is, I've used to say that, you know, it's easier to them coming from Italy, and they serve the purpose, and I end up, you know, quite satisfied to be able to get my design as a 5-star hotel without having to hack at those beautiful mountains and ending up where so much material gets thrown away because of the imperfection that people perceive. And that was one of the things that when I was working as a residential designer, especially in Singapore, I've seen so many containers of marble being thrown away because people thought that it was not perfect, and it always broke my heart. So now I'm a big user of tiles. They're perfect, and they do the trick as a 5-star. Using, you know, small does not mean shabby. I think that we've achieved with I think it's 17 square feet room to achieve a 5-star feel. I'm very proud of this project. Obviously, this is a suite, so it defeats my earlier statement, but the new wing was really making us having to do very small rooms, and we had to reflect the old building quality, and it's a 5-star achievement as a client. So I'm looking forward to the question. Thank you so much. I also wanted to say that I've been working in the Philippines for 15 years. I'm very familiar with the Philippines. My children are half Filipino, and we've done many projects in the Philippines, which are both hotels from Cebu to Clark Key. We're working on also a lot of residential developments in the Philippines at the moment. They're still going on, so I cannot share with you any photos as I signed an NDA, but I look forward to sharing with you, you know, the end result. Like Botanica, I think a lot of people in Manila know of Botanica, and we're launching the second and third wings of that project development. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that you know, I've contributed from outside to give a bigger perspective, and also to show that we are all part of the same world, and your efforts are part of the world's effort to work together and give a good sustainable environment to our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Some very, very great insights there. Certainly some challenges, you know, moving ahead. You know, we've had boom times in both real estate development and hospitality development for many years, both in the Philippines and across the whole of the region. But I guess, you know, things are going to maybe look a little bit different as we move ahead, or certainly there's going to be a lot more questions asked. And it's funny, we've had quite a lot of feedback and quite a lot of questions in that space. And what we're trying to do is consolidate them so that really these are, this is a question for both Romolo and for Isabel, really. Really, it's all around where we will believe in the post-COVID era that the consumer requirements, both in residential and hotels, will change in terms of, you know, space planning, in terms of health and safety, in terms of, from a residential perspective, where we will need to include additional facilities into a design, maybe a more formal home office area. In the hotel, you know, are people going to want more free independent space rather than being in a block hotel? So there's a lot of questions that in general about that. So, I mean, it's a question to both, and maybe we can kick off with Romolo. From a residential perspective, I mean, how do you believe the post-COVID life will be from a design perspective?
I think that everyone experienced what does it mean to stay long period. We're talking about days, weeks, months inside our own home. I think this is this experience never happened before. So we have been in some way prisoners of our homes. So in some cases, we even didn't have the chance to access the common areas inside the buildings. So for example, I always think that we need to learn from our own experience. In my experience, I was in a condo. Fortunately, I had a small terrace, and I enjoyed this small terrace once in a while during the day. I was thinking, who has no terrace, how could handle this period being closed indoor for several months. So from my point of view, I think that developers, above all in the Philippines, should consider always to provide the units, even if small, with terraces, so access, direct access to open air, to outdoor spaces. For example, in the Philippines, I noticed that that's not a common practice. I remember when we started to design here, all our buildings have, all our units have terraces, and the comments from other developers or other people was, why do you waste your space to give terraces? People prefer to close that space, and so that is an addition to their indoor space. But again, maybe because I'm Italian, I don't know, but we need always to access, to have an easy access to outdoor spaces. So from my point of view, I hope that developers understand now more than ever how important it is to give direct access from unit owners, from the unit themselves to outdoor spaces. So this is also about cross ventilation. I think it's extremely important to do not rely only on aircon, not only because it's expensive, but also because fresh air may be healthier than aircon. So I hope that in the future, in the new project, all developers will understand how important it is to provide units with cross ventilations. Obviously, design will also change in terms of for interior design. Maybe Isabel can answer better than me about that. But I'm assuming that public spaces or restaurants or hotels will have to rethink their interior design. But apart from that, I also think that this COVID experience will one day, I don't want to say disappear, but it will be mitigated. It will change. I mean, now obviously we are still very close to what happened, and actually we are not still out yet. So we always think about the COVID. But I mean, I don't think that in 2-3 years from now we will still think about COVID. I hope that that what we learn during this tough experience will not be forgot, but forget. But again, I don't think that life on Earth will change completely because of 3 months of lockdown. But again, as I said, let's just learn something out of it. And to me, this is, I mean, indoor and outdoor spaces have to be related to each other more and more. I think, again, as I said, maybe in Europe is a little different. I'm in the Philippines. I find a little tough, no, the access to outdoor. I remember at the beginning there were also people kidding me, say, why do you need to open a window? I remember very well. One time I visited a unit I needed to rent, and all the windows were closed, and only vasistas, very small vasistas in some areas. And I said, sorry, but what is the windows I can open? I say, no, there are no windows you can open. I say, but are you joking? Or no, it's true. But he told me, the broker, why do you need to open a window? I mean, to me, that question was a bit shocking, But anyway, I hope, yes, this approach to design will change in terms of making better relation between inside and outside, indoor and outdoor. That's my
How about in the hospitality space? How do you see the designs of this post-COVID-19 situation will change some of the way you make your designs, Isabel?
Well, okay, I was trying to, in my head, listening to ROMOLO. I think that being French, half Spanish and half French, I mean, I'm also like him, a big lover of outdoor open windows, terraces. And as you can see, I mean, I was one of the lucky ones not to really suffer from the lockdown because I have a garden. So my take on that is, I often sat in the garden looking at green and thinking that if I was to actually make one change would be to add more green to each of the development, to maybe each of the surfaces that are flat from the hotels, to create gardens where people can go and have a moment of refreshing themselves and their eyes and their breathing. It also calms the mind looking at greenery. And I just often thought that people in Manila, how little green, how little parks you have there, and how many people, if they wanted to actually go and walk to see some trees, there's really very little possibilities. So in the hotel industry, I would think that the changes I would make would be to use all the top of the buildings to create a more greenery, more floating greens. I'm also, a big lover of terraces. I think that people here have actually came to appreciate, in the evening to be able to open the windows. I know that there's a big love for air conditioning, but maybe we should also retrain people to, if we give them better air to breathe, that goes as a vicious circle. I think also a lot more attention to clean environments. I was reading the new laws being done by some of the hotel industry in terms of their in-house that new directives of like cleaning the doorknobs and the this and the this and that. And I'm just thinking, well, shouldn't have that anyway be part of the cleaning process? So it made me a little bit laugh, but I think a little bit more attention to the our cleaning habits as well. But in terms of the changing an hotel, other than putting more green and I think that if you don't want to see anyone, you just have to, like, you know, take the stairs and then stay in your room and order room service and have them leave the food at the door. So I don't know. I think that there's many ways, if you don't want to see people, to be able to do that, and being able to be together with other people. Yeah, I'm hoping, to be honest, that we're going to go back to a pre-COVID. Maybe there's going to be changes, but I don't think that the social people we are going to really, like, you know, be looking at continuing this distancing. When you see what's going on in Europe, where people are on the beach, you know, like 1 centimeter between each other, I'm looking at our isolation right now, and I'm just thinking, like, who's right in this whole thing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with both of you. Like us living in a condominium, I mean, settling for small plants like the one in my back compared to your open area there, Isabel. Thank you. As we move forward, let's take some questions before we end this session for today. Ronald, there's a question here for you. Question is from Angelo Tan. How did the decision to certify with EDGE come about? Was the decision motivated internally, or did the World Bank Group approach you to certify? Why EDGE and not other green rating systems?
When we had to decide which rating system to use, we obviously checked most of the ones available, which the most famous one is LEED, then there is Verde in the Philippines, BREEAM, Excel. And we found EDGE the most, how do you say, interesting to work with. First of all, because it has been conceptualized for developing countries. And it is very much located oriented, means that a green building in the Philippines doesn't have to have the same characteristic that a green building in Canada, for example, correct? Because the weather characteristics are different, the economy is different, etc. Instead, EDGE, and so EDGE takes very much into consideration this particularity of the place where you're going to build. For example, in the Philippines, where the power is among the most expensive in Southeast Asia, if not in the world, reduction power, it's extremely important. On top of that, also the way EDGE is developed is very, very user-friendly. And they develop online softwares where you can do most of the work yourself. It's easy to work with. And after that, actually, we have been contacted by the World Bank and also IFC. We are considered champions for EDGE in the Philippines, because we were among the first, if not really the first one, to use EDGE accreditation. So now we are working with EDGE, together with EDGE, to try to expand EDGE accreditation in the Philippines. And it's actually expanding. So I find it a very, very easy tool to be used. And I hope it will expand. Also in terms of cost, it's affordable, it's accessible. And also, you know, since our goal is to deliver green buildings to the middle market. So our buildings cost like the units in our building cost like similar buildings units in buildings that are not green. So for us, cost is very important. I remember that when we were studying other green build rating systems, they were mainly focused on the technology that was used in the building, like what kind of special aircon you have, special windows you have, special solar panels you have. All those special things cost money, you know. So we found it that it was not really matching our philosophy, which is to reach to be able to develop a green building that doesn't cost too much. So it's more about the passive green features. In fact, in Edge, they give a lot of consideration to natural light ventilations, water recycling, things that do not have a very high cost. So actually, I invite other developers in the Philippines to use it.
Thank you. Another question we have is, I think Isabelle can answer on this one. With this renewed interest and focus on the world of sustainability, how do you think developers, architects, hoteliers should take advantage or incorporate this in their upcoming projects?
Should take, sorry.
Um,
The last part
how,
of your
how
question.
the question is, how do you think developers, hoteliers, and architects should take advantage or incorporate this new or this renewed focus in the world of sustainability? It's like for the longest time before, no one's really paying attention that much, but because of this COVID-19 pandemic and towards the new normal, there's an opportunity that rises from it as well. So how do you foresee or incorporate this in your designs, in your
I think that there's going to be sustainability. I'm not 100% sure, you know,
guests
how
for the
it
hotel?
will be implemented. I certainly think that the way we have seen the environment, the nature kind of like take over, how everyone was quite amazed. And that's because, you know, the industries were using less carbon, you know, the air was cleaner. We also, I think, other than getting COVID, I think a lot of people must have had, you know, a betterment of, you know, how they breathe. So if this is going to be one of the impact that we're going to have for all of us, is to realize that, you know, the more we are conscious of the energies we use, the less it's going to affect our environment and the better we're going to be as humans. So therefore, in the hotel industry, I think we looking at where the energy is not being used correctly, maybe changing some of their apparatus, which, you know, is quite faulty and uses more than it should. Having experts look at how the whole hotel functions and how they could save money in electricity, in aircon, making sure also to renew their package of how to take care of what they have. Like, for example, I was just talking, someone told me that most of their installations come with maintenance, and that they don't pay for the maintenance package. So which means that, you know, for anything to work well, like your car, you have to take it to be checked, you know, so many miles.
Regularly, correct.
Yeah. And I think that the one thing important is to realize that everything that you use which needs a motor or electricity or to be plugged in needs to be operating at its best to be able to use less energy. And I think all these things, if it could be, you know, a realization of all of us to emit less in everything that we use, we could do a big saving and at the same time really sustainability would come in place, and also you know, tackles their so the money that you spend in front will definitely actually come back and reward you in the end.
Totally agree. Correct. Thank you, Isabel, for that beautiful insight. For those who questions are not addressed today, because we have a few questions lined up, but unfortunately we have to end today's webinar. We'll be answering your questions and we'll send it to our speakers for today, and definitely I will respond to you through emails. Okay. And thank you, Isabel, and thank you, Romolo. For those who are meeting us for the first time, RCL Philippines is a fully integrated real estate service and property development consultancy firm, which is the local partner of NA Global, bigger international firm based in New York. So for any questions related to this webinar today, please feel free to send us your email and we'll definitely respond to you as soon as possible. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Isabel and Romolo.
Thank you so much, Romolo. It was a pleasure. I'd love to come to the Philippines when it's going to be possible and see what you're doing and have a long discussion about your project, which seemed to be like really fascinating. And I always love to learn more. And I think that your approach is amazing. And Raymond and team, thank you for having me all the way from Singapore, but we're neighbors, so I look forward to seeing you in person, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Isabel. Looking forward to meet you, maybe in Singapore also. You never know.
Yeah, that would be lovely. And buonasera, buongiorno.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.